Okay, so I'm trying to get into this in our last video today, but I got sidetracked, so I'm going to start trying to stay focused on this one topic. It's the king's math. Okay, so how I got off on a tangent in our previous video today is I touched base on the wanton disregard that the USA Luddites had for their union talent back around 30, 40 years ago, if I recall correctly, where unions were seeking outrageous wages, like $10, $12 an hour or something, $20, whatever it was. It's too much, just too much. And the Chinese were willing to do it. All that grubby stuff, all that hand-dirty shit, and they're doing it a lot cheaper. And we can make, our quarterly bonuses will be huge. Think of it, with Chinese labor, and look at these costs. My God, we'll all be rich, on this one company alone. So it wasn't China demanded these people move over there. There was no high-pitched sales program. They just offered good, sound, reality-based structure and really good prices, the best price. And so it was a no-brainer. There was no interest in sustaining the war readiness of the nation. No interest in maintaining an infrastructure that could, on a dime, spin and manufacture munitions or tanks, or had no public spirit for war, no anything for war. And yet we have these politicians mouthing off as if they're born for war. Pete Hegseth with the tattoos, Oliver's body, halfway Nancy, I don't know, I don't really care. The boy has a lot of growing up to do if he wants to be considered a serious contender in world affairs. He's not the cowboy that's going to come onto the world stage and conquer everybody flat out. It's not going to happen, Petey boy. Anyway, the thing is, you've got a lot of people who bought hook, line, and sinker into their own propaganda, and it's becoming deadly for them. And being king, you're into the business of wake-up calls. When you pray to fuck the day grip. Anyway, let's do the math on this. The United States has bankrupted England, Germany, and France in the last 10 years for small. Just totally gutted their economies, their ability to produce goods. So they've rendered them into a worse condition than the United States is in today. The United States is at least in a condition where she can brag and threaten and postulate to some degree or other with her swiftly dissolving currency value. Like, what is the United States dollar worth? Well, it's worth whatever Donald Trump says it's worth. That's it. There's no more inherent value in the United States dollar than that today. Nothing, no gold, no oil, no assets, no nothing except the word of Donald Trump in supporting all of your USA holdings, quite frankly. And this should not be welcome news. The man doesn't understand the mathematics of what he speaks. Think of it, the country cannot pay her bills today. She takes in $4.4 trillion a year net to the government from all of her stock. She gets $4.4 trillion income per year. $2.4 trillion of which is spent on non-performing pseudo-assets called the military and interest payments, from which there's no profit derived for the U.S. investment. And it's hard to invoice people for bombing them. Can we say this? So over half of the U.S. Income is spent on frivolous, wasteful stuff that add no value to her. She has $1.6 trillion left over with which to pay all of her salaries, all her upkeep, all her maintenance, all her infrastructure. You notice the maintenance and infrastructure is lagging behind these days. Considerably, like when you contrast China or Russia, or even Iran, look at the subways in Iran or Russia or China, the railway stations. The goddamn trains in China go 300, 400 miles an hour, and I don't hear of any accidents. I'm sure they'd be blasted all over creation if there was one. Imagine a $400 an hour, $400 an hour train accident head on. Jesus. Anyway, so they have better service, better equipment, a cheaper price, all throughout the whole society. Same with Russia. The cost of living in Russia, that's out about 25% of what it costs me in Toronto. Forget about fuel and everything like that. This is basically food, rent, groceries. That's it. So when you hear these numbers, these math numbers, like Elon Musk was saying, my stock is worth $1.4 trillion and BYD is only worth $140 billion. Well, that's because most of the value in the Musk offering is government funded. Like Elon Musk didn't get the money to build rocket ships from his daddy or his mummy. You know, he had some good ideas. I don't dispute him this, but the good ideas don't grip his head in reality. Like he's trying to sell people on the idea of farming on Mars, for Christ's sake. He hasn't even gotten there yet. He's talking about farming on the place. To what I pointed out, this is why he hates me. I pointed out, well, it'd be interesting to get those seas to germinate, Elon, at minus 250 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. The last time I looked at the climate on Mars, but that's incidental to his plans. He's going to drag the sun closer. He and Billy Gates will drag the sun closer to Mars, and they'll have good farming conditions on Mars, likely. So instead, something happens to people where they lose their wits. Like Donald Trump, when he gained power, lost his solvency of mind. And I don't know what it is, but I pray to fuck it never enters my bloodstream. Anyway, the thing is, the math. So now, England's broke. England's broker than anybody. Germany's on her way, nosediving. She can't produce anything. She can't afford to make anything because the fucking cost of fuel is so high. That's courtesy of Joe Biden. That's when he waltzed the people of Europe down the garden path. I commented at the time, screamed my lungs out, got banned for the effort. But there was no profit in Germany to swallowing Joe Biden's dick. Just none at all, but they're doing it anyway. I couldn't figure out why. And France, the same thing. All hobbling along to this insolvent clown, birthing clowns, and firing guns from nations that should never, have wiggled past the light of dawn. Save for the perversions and deranged idiosyncrasies of people with more money than brains. And I finally met them. I couldn't believe it. I never thought I'd ever ran into an individual with more money than brains, but Jesus Christ, I have. And the thing is, they know it. And they pretend otherwise. As hard as they can. Like that their dollars have value, for instance. Think of it. How often has Donald Trump kept his word? Have the war over in 24 hours. Before I get into office, actually. Suck my dick, will you? Kiss my ass. Everybody, come on. His first offering in government was, okay, everybody, I spun throwing wrenches into your thinking. Come kiss my ass, suck my dick, basically. And he just loved it when a few instant dribblers came nibbling around his shores. And they just kind of petered out to not much as a result. Not too many people begging Donald Trump to kiss his ass these days. He would say this. Anyway, he's broke and threatening war. France is stone broke. No hope of regaining her commercial foothold anywhere, save for perhaps if China gives them a break. But France is still so stunned. She apparently is traveling to China to try and break China away from Russia. France wants to offer her feeble course to Chairman Xi. I expect him to capitulate to fruitless reasoning. But hope springs eternal in the mind of the idiot and the saint alike. It's just that the saint has far more odds on her side than a thief ever had on his. But I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu or Donald Trump are subtle enough to absorb any wisdom whatsoever at all. But the King's math says, it has nothing to do with new math. This is the regular 2 and 2 are 4 math, stuff I grew up with, and I don't understand new math at all. But anyway, the King's math says that the U.S. has no hope of successfully provoking a war against anyone, anywhere, for at least the next 100 years. She's so behind in every domain that gives birth to the spirit of competition is deadened and dwarfed in the subject principality today by the absolute constant insufferable stream of lies from her Luddites to her population, like we landed on the moon, Oswald killed Kennedy, 9/11 was a Saudi Arabian thing. You're the author of all of your own tragedies and sins. And there's nobody else hanging around to bluff ever notice. Anyway, this is your King's 2 cents worth on the math of war in operation today, December, 8th, 2025. I show up in court tomorrow. Your king could be in jail tomorrow. Anyway, that's it for us today. This was a long one. Thank you for listening. But it makes sense, doesn't it? Like, what the fuck are these people doing? The United States has to borrow money to purchase a ham sandwich today. China and Russia can pay their national debt out of petty cash. Whose currency would you rather bank on? Stock